This is the Leadership in Insurance podcast, brought to you by FinPro Search Partners.
Insurance companies are businesses and they need to look for the long term and be sustainable.
We went from 0 to 1 and now it's going from 1 to 100.
Insurance as a concept, as a kind of service, is brilliant. The execution is what we're looking at now.
I think the companies that are going to succeed are the ones that are going to understand and master the art of intent.
When we talk about innovation, we lean too heavily to think about technology and we don't think about creating a culture of innovation.
I think innovation is essentially continuous improvement of existing processes and platforms and product.
Right? It's got to be easy. It's got to be seamless.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Emerging Tech series of the Leadership in Insurance podcast. I'm your host, Gavin Savage, and this is the podcast where we speak to technology executives, founders and leaders from the world of InsurTech and insurance. And today I am very lucky to be joined by Sven, CTO of Turris. Sven, welcome. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure to be here. Looking forward to this. Discussed it a couple of times with you before, and glad we could finally make it work.
Yeah. Last time, I'm actually for the first time doing a podcast from FinPro Towers in London. I always usually do them from my home, but the last time I was in London, we had lunch and we kind of spoke about this, which I was, of course, on time and everything for. If anyone ever takes Ben out for lunch in London, his favourite place is Pret a Manger.
That's exactly right. Mostly because it doesn't really exist in the US. So, it's so good.
Yeah, it is great. I do love it. I'm sick myself with it, but because I don't live in London now, I always very much enjoy going. But it's rare. But it's always nice when we get to meet in person before these podcasts, because in the day and age that we live in now, this is all done remotely and via email. So it was nice. So before we get into it, Sven, always a nice place to start. And your background is non-traditional, if you like, in terms of that route to a CTO co-founder within tech. So would you be able to give us a bit about your background, your career background, and how you got into, technology and InsurTech, please?
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. It is somewhat unusual. I had a career in investment banking for about 12 years, I'd say. And that was in London exclusively. I started my career at Merrill Lynch, ended my career in investment banking at Jefferies, and it was all investment banking, basically advising large corporates on mergers and acquisitions, ECM, and debt capital market raisings, and did about 20 deals throughout my career. And then, I became director or senior vice president, as they call it, at Jefferies. And I was really faced with a conundrum to me that was acknowledging on the one hand that I'm not a perfect or great salesperson, and that is something that I'm always trying to improve, but it's not something that comes natural to me. And on the other hand, the career prospect changing drastically for me as you move to a more senior position in banking, specifically when your final career path is being a managing director, whose sole responsibility really is originating new deals and speaking to customers and networking. So, I just felt like I would have had a massive uphill struggle to climb, and it was not particularly one that I enjoyed either. I loved my time in investment banking. It was fantastic. It gave me a really solid groundwork and set of personal and professional skills and technical skills. But I felt like, I really wanted to do something much more entrepreneurial. And when COVID hit, so I had left investment banking at the end of 2019. I had a short stint at a private equity family office in London. After that, I decided to completely move out of finance and do something entrepreneurial. Then COVID, bound all of us to our respective couches, and I basically just took a few books and took the time that I had, the ample time to read up on something that I always enjoyed, but never really pursued to any great level. which was writing software code. When I say enjoyed, I enjoyed the idea of it. I had read a little bit about it, but never really delved into it to any great lengths whatsoever. But I picked it up fairly quickly, loved it. It was really, really enjoyable. Just being able to build something yourself. I when my wife and I moved to New York for her career prospect, really, I decided to formalize that a little bit. I spent 3 months, a bit more than 3 months at General Assembly, who do a fantastic boot camp. And I did that, did a whole bunch of projects whilst there. And then afterwards as well, eventually I met Doug online, and I joined. Doug is my co-founder and CEO of Turris. And I met Doug at his previous startup, which was Turris, which was an NGA selling car insurance policies to rideshare drivers in the US. And I joined Doug's business mostly because of the team that was there, but also I thought the idea was pretty cool to have a customized insurance product bespoke for the gig economy, which is a pretty interesting prospect and a large growth market. And that was my first job as a software engineer, and I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. Just being able to build something and push something to the code base and be in charge of running with a certain element of the product and making sure that is being seen to fruition, and then eventually being deployed and used by customers is a fantastic prospect that I believe every developer is or should be enjoying. And I thought it was fantastic. So unfortunately, Stable didn't go quite the way that we had intended, for a number of reasons. But in essence, the company was sold, and Doug and I afterwards discussed that we really wanted to do something in that space, the insurance space. There's a great need for optimizing and simplifying the whole interchange or interconnection between insurance and finance. And we felt there's so much to do and so much to improve upon, and sort of bring, or rather allow insurance parties, the players of the insurance funds flow to actually partake in much more advanced technologies, is something that we thought was really interesting. And that really takes us to Turris, which we founded together, and that's where we are today.
Awesome. I mean, yeah, as I say, an unusual journey from investment banking, and then in a matter of 3 years, you've picked up coding and then joined as, almost like founding engineer at Stable, CTO, and then now co-founding with Turris. I mean, I guess for the listeners, given it's very early stage for you guys, could you explain a little bit more about the Turris business and what the mission is, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So Turris is in essence a financial service provider, really a bank for insurance agencies in the first instance. And what we want to do, or set out to do, is we want to essentially rewire how insurance agencies manage their funds flow. So today you have a number of pain points that insurance agencies suffer when they want to, set up a bank, set up a payment provider, go through the onboarding. That's already where the pain starts, to be honest. Charge or bill their customers, and then make sure that they remain in trust at all times. The funds are safe in their trust account, but also that funds are then moved from their trust account into their operations account for the commission part, and from the trust account into the carrier, which would be the sort of net premium, that's attributable to the carrier. So all these flows are there, and those obligations specifically for those insurance agencies that take on the responsibilities of billing So that's a huge task to take on, and agency build is something that all agencies will find painful. And we will set out to essentially provide a financial service or bank product that allows those agencies to, in essence, run that whole stream of funds flow much more effectively and much more efficiently.
Yeah, super interesting, and that whole you and Doug coming together, the inspiration of the creation of Turris solving that problem. Like, I think you've kind of answered it in terms of the pain point that's clearly there within the industry, but I'm just always interested to know, why was this the problem that you both chose to try and solve? Is it based on your experience as, an investment banker, or was it a combination of what you were seeing in the banking space and also what you guys had maybe experienced at Stable? Like, what was the real burning desire for you guys to go in? Because look, I mean, you started a company at an interesting time in the market. So
sure, but this time, usually I would say, if you look back at these, company formations happen in bursts. And you'll find that oftentimes the more interesting companies actually get formed and capitalized at the worst times.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I think historic track record is on our side, which is already a plus. If you can survive in this kind of environment, that's already pretty solid. And I also think that right now the focus on cash being king again, which it hasn't been for a long time, is a good thing. But leaving all that aside, to answer your question, yes, I think it's a combination of both, although I would argue it's definitely the experience at Turris that has led us to this point. I'd say two parts to this answer, right? The first part is the banking aspect. Yes, my track record or background does help a little bit. But I would argue maybe an observation that I would think is relevant here is that, banking has been fairly stable business, and in terms of what a bank is, what a bank does, for, I'd say, I don't know, the last 100 years maybe. I mean, banking has always been sort of a product that is fairly generic and applies to everyone. And we feel there is a reasonable assumption here that banking in the future will be much more verticalized by industry verticals. Because there are many other industry verticals who suffer certain pain points that a better banking infrastructure could solve for them. But the problem is that the retail banks and commercial banks that are abound today are not capable of finding a good solution. One, because usually those verticals are quite small in terms of, or tend to be smaller than their overall business. So there's an argument to say, well, if it's a big business like in the UK, in the US, where you have a bifurcation of large national banks, the sort of champions, and then the small regional banks, the large banks are too big to take on this job, and the small banks are, I'd say, not technically advanced enough, and don't have maybe the sector expertise that it requires to really be, to really be in charge and able to come up with a product solution themselves. And I'd say the second part, which arguably is the more important part, is of course our experience and track record and background in running Stable. This is really me paraphrasing more or less Doug's experience. Definitely has led us to this point where Doug had experienced firsthand the problem and the pain points that come with having to manage those funds flows. And once you've experienced those pain points and problems yourself, you're thinking, well, there should be really a better solution for this. And this is exactly what we're building out right now, right? So we would have loved to be able to onboard with a bank that immediately understands that we need two accounts, right? We need a trust account and an operations account. So having that partner, that banking partner that understands why we need to do that and don't ask silly questions, or make us go through an enhanced due diligence process because those two accounts out of the box sound suspicious to anyone who is uninitiated and doesn't have the insurance background. Would have been hugely valuable to us. Being able to send a payment link to our customers who can, then have the option of paying by card, paying by ACH, or wire, or whatever other modalities, bundled with a premium finance product, being able to borrow, against the cash flows that we generate, against the book of business that we have. These books of business, these policies are usually pretty strong businesses. If I compare this back to the companies that I've seen and evaluated in my investment banking times, the recurring cash flow coming out of these businesses is actually pretty solid. Churn is fairly low. So you should think that from a credit perspective, these businesses are highly solid and strong businesses that are credit worthy, but still they struggle, finding financing in the market for a number of reasons. Because I think the large banks that could evaluate a balance sheet and P&L of an agency and understands that this cash flow and this business is actually a recurring business and hence very attractive from a lending perspective. We're talking tens of millions of dollars of volume in terms of loan capacity. That's not what the typical agent needs, right? We're talking millions and not tens of millions. So basically the business is too small for large banks. And the small banks, the regional banks for whom that commercial business would be suitable in terms of size, they don't have the time or maybe the know-how to really delve into those statements and understand that those businesses are strong, credit-worthy businesses. So wherever we see a lot of these pain points that I've just walked through, and we would have loved to have a partner like Turris, like the bank that we're trying to build now, to help us, get going as an insurance and GA.
So it sounds like it's a very underserved market in terms of who you're targeting, and like my just question thinking off what you're saying there is like, what is it that's different about Turris, which you have alluded to in terms of prior experience and the skill set that both you and Doug bring, but is there more to it in terms of what's different about, I guess, the Turris platform in that space of the payments and the back, how does it differ from that traditional banking platform, and how are you able to kind of serve that underserved market?
Yeah, that's a good question. Let me walk you through some of the solutions that we propose in our MVP, the minimum viable product, and how we think of those solutions. I think that will give you a much better picture of how we're different. So let's start with the onboarding process. When you're onboarding with a bank, sometimes you have to call people up. You have to come into a branch. Our onboarding process is 100% online. We understand your business, so out of the box you get a operations and a trust account. We understand exactly why you need that trust account, so we're not going to ask you silly questions around it. You will also be able to sort of pick and choose different products that we offer. So there's a whole list of products that we come out with first that are going to be highly relevant and valuable for you. There's going to be, as I mentioned before, a payment solution. So that in essence allows you to send a payments link to your customers. So in our banking platform, you will be able to create a new customer. So that's a customer that you are selling a policy to. You can create a new transaction. That transaction will automatically send an email to that customer and invoice that customer with the invoiced amount. The customer then receives that email, clicks on a link, and goes onto a payment platform. On that platform is the third innovation, I guess. So the third innovation is we have a premium finance marketplace backing us up. So we will offer that premium finance marketplace to your end customer, you being the agent. That end customer can now not just choose between card and ACH. They can also choose to finance that premium deal. And most importantly, unlike what other unlike what other providers do, they give you access to one premium finance company. We will give you access to a premium finance marketplace where you can choose from a variety of premium finance providers, and you get the best premium financing solution that suits your needs, whether that's price or type of upfront or size of upfront payment. So that's the third innovation, built-in premium finance marketplace. So the money now, let's say that the customer pays, the money now is moved automatically into your trust account. Now you can actually, as an agent, you can, even at the point of setting up that transaction, that bill event, you can actually decide what you're going to do with that money. You could move it automated, by the way, you can split up the payment and receive, say, 20% of the premium funds as your commission into your operations account, all automatically channeled through your trust and operations account, and have the remaining 80% moved on to the carrier, right? Or in fact, for that matter, any other recipient that you deem is party to that transaction. So it's perfectly customizable. The fourth innovation is you can actually, and this is what we found out, we realized actually a lot of agents don't use that float very effectively. What I mean by float is the premium funds sit in your account. The 20% or thereabouts, which is usually the size of the commission, is yours anyway. Okay, so you can do with that whatever you want to a certain extent. Technically speaking, it should also be under trust, but that's a different matter. The 80% are moved to the carrier, and usually the agent has, like, let's say, a 20 or 30-day leeway. Most agents don't do anything with that cash. The fourth solution that we built into this product is a treasury management product, which allows our customers to have those funds automatically flow into a treasury management feature where it yields a return. And then, again, depending on the contractual agreement with the carrier, have the money returned to the trust account or maybe paid directly into the carrier's pockets on the day that is contractually agreed. So you're basically maximizing the hold of those funds, and you are economizing on that float by investing it into, say, treasury stocks. So those will have some variability in terms of, or volatility in terms of the price throughout the hold period. But of course, the return is guaranteed at the entrance of that trade. Your counterparty at that point is the US government. So unless you believe that the US government has a financial liability problem, which it doesn't, it's a FUD, they can print money. So, let's put that aside. You will get your money back plus some return. So that return is something that actually allows us to be instead of just a cost center in an agent's mind, we become a revenue center. So that fourth product feature of ours, this treasury management feature, actually is a revenue contributor to an agency's business, and not an unmeaningful one either, especially in this environment. We're seeing a much more normalized interest rate environment, which is going to be normalized for much longer than most people think. I don't think we're going to go back to zero interest rates anytime soon. So agents really are leaving a lot of cash on the table. You could be earning like $3,500 on every 1 million of annual premium funds flow. So if you are, and 1 million is a small agency, right? So that would be almost like a one-man shop. If you're a one-man shop and you have $1 million flowing through your trust account, and you hold those for a few days, maybe 20 days on average, you are literally leaving $3, $4, maybe $5,000 on the table. And largely, I would add maybe the fifth product feature that we're pretty keen on, but that's maybe not something that we will come out with for the MVP, although we're aiming for doing that, is an automation. So automation in the sense that we will expose an open API to our more tech-enabled customers, the sort of tech-enabled MGAs, the larger ones that have a tech team and can actually plug into our API. We want to allow our customers to run their banking business programmatically, so that there is no more a need for somebody to go into their banking platform, log onto their agency, their AMS systems, and do a manual cash reconciliation process. Painful, hugely time consuming, shouldn't happen in this day and age. So I think those are, I've been speaking a lot now here, but I hope I sort of walked you through the customer experience from onboarding to making a making a payment request and receiving those funds, and then what they can do with those funds. Yeah, let me know if you've got any questions or anything that's unclear.
Yeah. No, that's just I fully understand. Not to the deepest intricacies, but from soup to nuts, you guys provide a complete, holistic, end-to-end platform for, as I say, kind of the insurance industry, and it totally answers the question as to why this differs from a traditional banking platform.
And that's actually another observation that it's a USP of ours, which is those individual services do exist already in some way, shape, or form somewhere.
Not in the one. Yeah.
Two comments on that. Exactly. So on first comment, not in one packaged solution, and even individually, let alone in a packaged solution optimized for the insurance industry. And this is the big emphasis here. This is optimized for insurance agencies and for the insurance industry, funds flow at large. Yeah.
And the main things that this will enhance from customer experience, for insurance brokers, agents, and carriers, what's the kind of main benefits of that, succinctly, and a couple of, bullet points from your end. Like, I think you've clearly explained the benefit from an end-to-end solution and how it's seamless. It's, as I say, from soup to nuts, completely embedded within the one platform. But overarching that, what do you guys seeing? How does this enhance, everyone from brokers, agents to carriers, customers?
Yeah, absolutely. First off, it removes a lot of the pain points that I earlier talked about.
Yeah.
When you onboard, you're not being asked silly questions to justify what your business model is. We understand exactly what you're doing and why you're doing that. You have cost advantages. You have time advantages. We aim to actually, because we have control of the payments flow and the actual underlying accounts, in many instances, we will be able to make payments available to you more or less immediately, if not same day, then the next day. That's a huge advantage. Take Stripe or ePay Policy. You won't get your money. You might have your money in a week. Now, we don't see any reason why an agency shouldn't have the funds in their account the next day. And that's a huge benefit. Now, that requires some knowledge on our part of the customer. So maybe those features won't be available to you immediately. Once we've built out those solutions, we need to figure out exactly how we roll this out. So there is a possibility that you need to build up a track record with us, so that we can, in essence, make those funds available to you. But on paper, there's absolutely no reason why that shouldn't work. And lastly, there's of course the revenue maximization potential. If you're a large agency, you should be maximizing the utilization of this float. Every other company that has a float does that. Insurance is a good example. They invest their float. There's absolutely no reason why insurance agencies should not be doing that either. And lastly, it's the whole play around automation and being able to run your business programmatically. I think today a lot of the agencies, especially the smaller ones, are a far cry from being tech enabled in that sense. I think actually, and maybe this is a wider discussion, but ChatGPT is actually going to, I think, this is at least our sort of modus operandi and assumption, that ChatGPT has the potential to democratize the technology enabledness, so to speak, of small agencies, where you needed a team of, say, 10 engineers a year or 2 years ago, with fairly specific like vertical expertises within the sort of software development flow. Today you can get away with like 1 or 2 good ones together with ChatGPT, which will enable those to be as productive as those 10. I'm not saying that this is a perfect solution, but certainly for smaller agents, there's absolutely no reason to not believe that democratization is going to go ahead, where even a much smaller team of engineers will be able to accomplish practically and technically the same for a much smaller agency. So, the idea is that in the long run, every agency will be and will have to be tech enabled. So the demand for our API that aims to be offering you endpoints that allow you to run your entire banking business, everything I described, from onboarding to moving funds, to the treasury management feature, to the lending feature, to the payments feature, should be accessible to you via the API.
Yeah, amazing. And yeah, I think you're so right about, we couldn't get through an episode without mentioning AI and ChatGPT, but I think it's the great equalizer, and it just, there's absolutely no need, as you say, for small brokers to think that they can have that by not hiring 10, 20 engineers, and that's probably what stopped them. But even yourself being someone, the engineering route is somewhat very untraditional in the last 3 or 4 years, with the technology, with the courses available now, with AI being able to do this. Like, you fast tracked from engineer to senior engineer to principal to manager to CTO all in 3 years effectively, but you've done it all, from coding to strategic leading, from creating the product, and again, it's all the tools that you have at your disposal, coupled with, of course, your own ability to pick things up super quick. And as you say, there's no reason why other small businesses can't do the same. I'm conscious of your time here as well, but I'm just really interested in that aspect of it. The business model, the business expertise, the understanding of what the industry needs is obviously there in abundance from yourself and Doug and everything you've talked through. But technology is clearly the superpower as well behind all of this. And Doug, CEO, he's out there flying here, there, everywhere, attending events, he's raising funds, and then Sven's in New York most of the time, even though you're not there just now. You're coding, you're head down. Like, absolutely. The tech is at the forefront of the InsurTech capability, is what I'm trying to say. That's also the USP. But like, from your perspective, how do you do that as a kind of almost a one-man band, building this end-to-end platform and what's next for Turris in this evolution?
That was one of the key reasons why I was so keen to do something with Doug, because I felt like I had built up enough capabilities and technical sort of prowess and know-how to be dangerous. I'm not going to be sitting here and confuse myself with a 10-year CTO. I'm just not there. Okay, but I have to say, ChatGPT has really enabled me and really enabled me to do things that I didn't think I would be able to do, and certainly not in the amount of time that it took me to do that. So we were able to build up, essentially from a cold start, as in, repo didn't exist on GitHub, to a fully functioning and working banking feature. So as this, you will have noticed that I talked about these different products. There are feature sets, right, of our overall banking infrastructure. So the banking feature set is really just a feature set that allows you to do things that you can do with any other bank, right? The onboarding process, well, I say with every other bank. I mean, there's still more here that we can offer that we're offering that most banks don't. Our onboarding is all online, and 100% end-to-end online. But that banking feature, we basically brought that to life in the space of like 2 months. Now that is, the entire onboarding process, custom built, a dashboard, the ability to set up recipients or pays, and 2FA authentication, JSON Web Token based, out of the box. So there's no way, proper security metrics. You can move funds between your accounts. You can send funds to external accounts. So everything of that we built up as a team of 2 in the space of a little less than 2 months. And for the last month or so, we've been working on building out the other features, that I mentioned, including the payments feature, which is our next product that we're currently working on and building out. So to answer your question, right, how is that possible? Well, we are a small team of 2 engineers. I'm in the trenches all the time. I love that about my job. I hope I'm never going to stop sitting, in front of my PC and working on code that is relevant to our customers anytime soon. Now, to answer your second part of the question, which is, where are we going next? So you alluded to the fact that we're raising out and raising funds, which is absolutely right, and we have made a ton of progress in that space. So we hope to raise our pre-seed round very soon. If that happens, we will then do a couple of things. Most notably on the engineering side, we will hire. So we already have an external engineer, which is a contractor who's fantastic, with whom I work every day. Every morning we have a stand-up, and he's a great guy. And we will hire or aim to hire 8 more of these guys. So we want to have a bench of 9 engineers. Let's say, by the end of November. And with that bench, we will build out all those feature sets that I alluded to earlier. Those feature sets will basically form our MVP product, which is the product that we will go out to customers with. We're working with a bunch of customers already, and we will intensify that work stream as we hire those engineers and attack all the other feature sets from a coding perspective, because we have lined up a number of design partners, agencies who will help us build this product, shape the product in a way that no one else could. These are great guys, and these are agencies that we're talking one-man bands right up to an MGA with 100 million of annual premium flow. So being able to build across the the sort of retail end of the spectrum, the sort of B2B spectrum, right up to that MGA, which is B2B on an enterprise basis, is phenomenal, because it allows us to build out to build out those 2 sets at the same time is great. Because I think, and I'm putting my finance and investment banking hat on here, for our Series A round, it'll be fantastic if we have created 100 to 150 small agencies as paying customers. But we have also made progress in designing and implementing an enterprise solution. for an MGA with 100 million of annual premium funds flow and more. Because what that means, or what that says to our future investors, is you've got the small fast growth, but probably also to some extent fast churn, because these companies go, they fall by the wayside as well. Of course, there's a natural cycle of small scale agencies, which is great, and that's our bread and butter, and this is where we want to shine. But having that enterprise platform or enterprise solution with a launch partner of 100 million in annual premium funds flow is fantastic, because those customers are going to be ones that from a series B and C perspective will be hugely important. They will drive a lot of value from an investor perspective.
Awesome. I think, what really kind of speaks to me is your passion for building products, and writing code for, as you say, customers, and building something for the industry that seems like it's absolutely needed. So, wish you and Doug, the best of luck, and it sounds like it's going to plan. Before
I've actually...
Sorry, you go.
Do you mind? Yeah, I was just going to say this because I think it's really interesting, and I thought about this for quite a while. And so when the last few days I've been working on designing and working through the whole onboarding process for those engineers. As in when we go out and find those 8 additional engineers, we want to make the onboarding process as smooth and valuable for them as possible, so that they can become become a contributing software engineer very fast. And it struck me. I mean, I haven't seen this much with my first from a first sort of eyes perspective, but from what I have been seeing is that in the sort of onboarding documentation for that purpose is what's sort of lacking in a lot of the tech businesses. And I've been spending a lot of time over the last few days building this out. And to your point, when I wrote out the the engineering best practices, but also our behavioral codex, I think what I want to make sure is that every engineer shouldn't worry about like lines of code committed. The most important thing that I want them to think about is, have I done something this week that made a difference to our customers? Like if I get every engineer to think about that religiously, like can I do something this week alone that is committed to the code base, and we have a end-to-end implemented CI/CD pipeline. So everything that we do is, if it of course passes the tests, manual as well as automated ones, committed to production fairly fast. At the click of a button, if I accept the pull request, it's done. So we can be very nimble, we can be very fast, but I want every engineer to think very, very much front of mind, what can I do this week that makes a difference to our customers and improves the customer experience just 1%. If we have every engineer doing that every week, in a year's time, we will have a really phenomenal product.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think it's that really introspective way of thinking how you can get the best out of your engineers, really allowing them to be a big contributor to the business, not just the codes. Right. I think you're on absolutely the right tracks to hire some fantastic engineers. Sven, before I let you go, you've been very insightful, very in-depth about all of the questions around the gaps in the industry, the solution you're providing. And again, your passion for just engineering and tech comes across. So I wanted to finish with 3 quick fire questions, 1-word answers from you. And I wanted to know, first of all, what's your favorite tech gadget or tool? I'm really interested to know that from you.
Tech gadget or tool? Honestly, it'd have to be my MacBook. I'm in love with my MacBook. It's a fantastic. I mean, I used to be so I grew up with a desktop Microsoft Windows PC. And right up to, I think, 5 years ago, exactly when I left investment banking and I joined this family office. This family office was a bit more tech enabled than banking at that time. And they had MacBooks. I hated the first 2 weeks because all my Excel and PowerPoint shortcuts didn't work. Had to relearn that. But ever since, I'm absolutely converted. I will never, ever go back to Windows.
Love it. And a book or a podcast that you would recommend to tech enthusiasts like myself or anyone listening to this tech series? Is there any that you've picked up or read, or any podcast you listen to that you'd recommend?
Yeah, there is. There is a book. I'm gonna have to. Let me just. I found her on Twitter, and then I followed her on Twitter a little bit. I'd be butchering her name. She's got an Eastern European sounding name, just like my wife, who's from Serbia. But she wrote this book about React, and it's probably the most insane book I've ever written about anything, let alone specifically about the React world, but even including everything else in coding. The first chapter even revealed some facts about React that I thought, or it rather disproved some facts that I thought were, absolutely true, but turned out to be absolutely untrue. And these are like the book is fantastic, and I should really find out what her name is so I can.
We can include it. We can include it in the comments when we reshare this.
Let's include that, because honestly, so I've reached out to her already. I want all of our engineers to have access to that book. They need to read that. I put that book as a reference into our onboarding manual. Every engineer is supposed to read that. That book is phenomenal.
Amazing. Well, look, I just think that brings us nicely out of time there again. I'm conscious of your time, but this has been great. So I really appreciate you coming on the podcast and telling us all about the mission and all the other insight you shared with us, Sven. I hope you've enjoyed it.
I absolutely did. And by the way, so the book is called Advanced React.
Advanced React. Okay.
Advanced React, yeah. And her name is Nadia. Now, as I said, I'm butchering her name, but it's Nadia Makarevich, I think. Okay. So anyone who listens in, do look up that book. Fantastic book about React.
Amazing. What a great way to finish on a recommendation. Sven, again, thank you for the time and enjoy the rest of your day.